Well, hey there. I am Matt Meinke. I'm the General Presbyter of Maumee Valley Presbytery, and I am here today with the Reverend Cathi King. She is the pastor at First Presbyterian Church in Tecumseh, Michigan, and we're talking about best practices and Zoom worship and how this has been going. Cathi, how you doing?
I'm good, Matt. You?
I'm doing well. It's been a crazy time. I think it's been a crazy time for everybody.
For sure.
But yeah, some folks are rising to the occasion. Sometimes I'm surprised at where the creative outlets are coming from. With you, I wasn't surprised. I knew you were a creative kind of pastor, and I knew that you'd end up having some great best practices. You know, one of the most impressive things that I have seen you do at your church, and I've worshiped with you at First in Tecumseh, but one of the things that was most impressive was that you're doing this worship on Zoom. And I feel like you're using it as an opportunity to incorporate other leaders and maybe even like develop leaders and develop spiritual gifts. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, so yeah, it's interesting because you can give people opportunities to take on particular and specific tasks when you're doing Zoom worship. And it's not unlike when you're doing worship, in person. But it's really essential with technology because I found, and I will step back and say, this has been a learning curve for me. When we first started doing Zoom, I was doing pretty much all of it. I was moving the slides. I was, answering the chats. I was the one person show, and learned very quickly this is not helpful. I'm completely and totally stressed out. I am not worshiping. Other people are not engaged. This is not going well. There's a lot of little delays while I'm trying to find the thing I'm looking for. So pretty quickly, we raised up a couple people that had either Zoom experience in their work lives. So they knew how to do this and they could adapt it to doing it with church. So we picked up some tech support people that would be co-hosts during the worship service, and really they are there to welcome people in from the waiting room and to provide whatever tech support is needed. If somebody can't get their audio working or whatever, they take care of that. There's a guy that's in our church that's fantastic with the slides. He loves to choose the photos to put them in. He loves to actually run the slideshow, and he's our worship elder, so it's great. We've involved lay leaders, individual people who read the scriptures, people who read the chatted prayers, people who are musicians.
And all those are made co-hosts.
They are all made co-hosts, so that when it's time for them to do the thing, they unmute and they do their part. One of the things that we've learned, Matt, as we've done this, is when we first started, I tried to emulate the traditional flow of the worship order from meeting in person to the Zoom platform, and learned that wasn't going to work as well for us, because what we wanted to do is I wanted to find that balance between setting the mood and the intention of the movement and worship, and not having so many transitions with slides. The transitions, every time you do those, it's an opportunity for error.
Right.
So
we've been integrating in PowerPoints, but it's very selective.
Yeah. So what we do,
platform.
So what we do is we really design the worship so that it is, again, we're intentional in our coming in quietly and worshipfully, with instead of blocking it where we're incorporating songs in several different places, we come in with just the photos or just the slides and responsive readings, or sometimes it's not responsive at all. It's really just a call to worship, a centering prayer, a psalm, something that really settles us in and makes that an intentional worship movement. And then we can open it up to more of a community sharing event. So for us, for our church, we are a very community-oriented church. We do our joys and concerns from the floor of the church. We do long passing of the peace. The community formation piece is a big part of who we are. So we wanted that built into our Zoom platform worship. We didn't want to lose that because we were in this virtual meeting space. We wanted the virtual to feel very real. So
I sense that community piece right at the get-go, that I'm
right.
seeing it in the chat feature, but you were very, very wonderfully and kind of organically leading that by encouraging people to use the chat feature for this, that, and the other. You know, you were directing the traffic, if you will, and you were then, you know, you talked about drawing people into this space, that you did that visually then with the PowerPoint slides. I'm wondering if you might be willing to share some of those to give us an idea of how you've been drawing people in different ways into the space.
Yeah, so I'll go to the service that we did on the 3rd of May. And the reason I'll go to that one is because that particular worship service the theme was about church. What is church? And we've been missing church. We've been missing our building. We've been missing our gathering together in a physical space. So we were trying to kind of reimagine church, understanding of church as people, as a gathering of people. So I'll go to the slideshow that we did on that day. We showed a lot of pictures of our church, and not just pictures of our church building, but pictures, so this is outside our church, but pictures of our church people, right? So this is our choir, and this was a special service that we did. I think it was Maundy Thursday in our sanctuary. You know, this is when we did the laying on of hands for a new class of elders and deacons. But these are faces, these are people that they know, they are, you know, that bring that real sense of who are we, our children on the steps for the children's message.
Right. See, this is what I'm talking about, where, I mean, I was drawn visually into the life of the church, but I was also longing to be together again with you and see you all in person again. It was a good mix. Look at that. Where I get to see parts of the church, but parts of church life. I love it.
Right. So that was that particular day. Now, we don't do pictures of our church every Sunday. Sometimes it's nature pictures. Sometimes it's, you know, we're really drawing on the theme, you know, using some real tangible outdoor photos of mountains or forests or water. But what I like about Zoom, actually even more in some ways than when we're together and we're using a projector, you can get that real close, clear picture and clear words right there in front of you. I want to say also another thing that we have found with our worship on Zoom, we have some people who have some difficulty hearing. And one of our oldest folks of our church said just the other day, he prefers worshiping right now at Zoom because while he misses everybody, he hears 100% of what's spoken and understands 100%.
Isn't that
at
interesting?
church, yeah, when he's at church in person, he'll hear about 85% and understand maybe even less because of the movement and the way he has hearing aids. But in that worship on Zoom, it's clear, it's present. And
you were saying the same kind of thing too with the grainy pictures that we were talking earlier about, the grainy pictures that are, you know, projected up on the screen versus the ones here. They're sharp, they're clear.
Yeah, and they're evocative, and that's the thing about it, is that it's a whole experience of the multifaceted, whether it's hearing music or it's seeing images or art, or it's listening to the words. It's an opportunity to engage in worship. One of the things I think that's a challenge for these different platforms of online worship right now is to try to make them come to life so that they don't feel two-dimensional. And that's the sort of the bad rap that they get coming in. People feel like, well, I'll just wait till we meet back in person again because I don't want to do this thing where we're, you know, using technology. That's not worship to me. But we're really trying to find ways to draw people into worship, to make it worshipful. And for us, a lot of that is engaging with each other. So we start our whole service by everybody being invited to bring a candle. We all light the candle at the same time at the very beginning of worship. So we're from the very beginning, we're coming together as church.
You've done the passing of the peace real well. Tell me about that.
So the passing of the peace. So we have this whole front-end loaded screen slideshow thing that leads us through this opening liturgy up until it's time to do the passing of the peace. So through the prayer of confession, the assurance of pardon, and after the assurance of pardon, we do this. We do this open gallery view, and I invite people to scroll through so they can see people's faces. And you can chat your welcome or your peace, or you can wave, or some people do, pass the peace with each other. They speak, they're fully unmuted. And at our church, that can go on for, many minutes when we're in person.
Yeah.
We don't let it go on for many minutes when we're online, but we let it go on for a while so people can feel comfortable. Yeah. They miss each other.
And so you manually override, you unmute everybody so that it's deliberately holy chaos. Yeah, I love it.
And they know that's coming. And they love that. Yeah.
You also use the breakout room feature, which some folks, I think if you have the free version, you don't even have it. But even if you have the pro version, it takes a little bit to figure out where the breakout room feature even is. But I thought you guys use breakout rooms so effectively. Tell us about some of your learnings on that. What's worked, what's not, all that.
So in worship, we've used breakout rooms really only for fellowship, coffee hour kind of thing after worship. What we found when you're in live worship that's face-to-face, in-person worship, it's easier to welcome visitors. When you're doing the passing of the peace, it's easier for people to go over and say, welcome to worship, it's good to have you with us. In a Zoom thing, it's hard to welcome visitors. And so this is really what we like to do with these breakout rooms. We invite people to come into that space, and really everybody introduces themselves, and it's really maybe 8 people in a room. And they have about 10 minutes, that's it, to be together, to get to know each other just a little bit, connect with people that they know, and connect with people that they don't know. As you know, Matt,
where I think you won over Tay. You saw him poke his head in the door. If you did, he joined you all in worship for the first time in many, many years. And I think one of the reasons he felt so welcome was because of that fellowship breakout room at the end. When it's really intimidating talking to 100 or 200 people in a Zoom worship, but now all of a sudden I'm just introducing myself to 7 people. I can handle that, and
absolutely. And at church, when we're in person and you go to coffee hour, you go to see your friends, you go get your cup of coffee, you hang out with people that you know. In this situation, we randomly send people to a breakout room. So I'm not putting people with who they know. We're doing a random, you're invited to go to room 1, and you go to room 1 and there's 6 or 7 other people. And then, then you have an opportunity to introduce yourself to people that you maybe have never met before and get to know them briefly. So it's worked out really well for us. They love it. And then at the end of the 10 minutes, everybody's popped back into the main room and we say our final goodbyes to each other. And, Matt, I think in the very beginning of this pandemic, I know for me personally, I didn't know how long it was going to be. And I put a worship guide out online on our website, and that was all I did that first Sunday. Our session decided to close the building on a Saturday. The first Sunday, it was just a worship guide online. The very next Sunday, we met with Zoom worship. So, and partly it was because one of our elders, we had a session meeting on Zoom, and she said, why don't we try worship on Zoom? And at first I thought she was nuts, but I thought, all right, we'll try it. And we tried it on that first Sunday, and we've been working on it and working on it and working on it. And I'll tell you, our congregation is a pro shelter-in-place congregation and a pro Zoom congregation. So they aren't pressuring to come back together if it's not going to be safe. So they're comfortable gathering the way we're gathering, and we have more every Sunday. And I'm an advocate for trying to find ways to make these online platforms work well for us to gather.
Yeah, you are so creative, Cathi, and I've appreciated your ministry here among us in the presbytery.
Thank you.
But so talk a little bit about some of that creative overflow. I saw it certainly with how you incorporated children in worship, but how you use the visual space that we have. Or what you did on Mother's Day. I don't know, I didn't check in with you all on Mother's Day, but talk to me about some of those other creative things, ways you've incorporated visual stuff or children worship or all that?
So, well, I'll just say that on Mother's Day, one of the things that we did, you're talking about the use of space, and one of the things that we did on Mother's Day, we were talking about living stones, because as I said, Bryce Weeby was had recorded a sermon, and we shared that on that day, which as a mother, I was very thankful to be able to have that little bit.
Remind us who Bryce is, for those of us that don't know special offerings too well.
Yeah, director of special offerings from the denomination. Yeah, so Bryce did a great job. Anyway, he was talking about Peter's text on living stones, come to him as living stones to be built into a spiritual house. And so during the children's message, I taught about cairns from Ireland. And I had invited people before that in the worship guide that went out on Friday. I invited people to to gather a stone, or maybe a pile of stones, maybe gather a cairn and have that in your worship space, set in your worship space before you call in for worship. So I referred to those stones, and then I taught the kids about how to build a cairn. And I had a platform, and I had these stones, and I showed, about stacking these stones. And the stones that I had, it was really, the base wasn't flat enough, so it was really a balancing act. And so while I was talking to them, I was holding this pile of stones, and then when it got to a point where it was actually fully balanced, I could go like this, and it stayed. And then we could talk a little bit about, balance and about the importance of what's holding us up, who's holding us up, who we're holding up above us, that whole concept of living stones. And but the thing about that as well is that they had the opportunity to have a stone, so they could look at their stone and think about themselves as a living stone. They could then take this idea of building a cairn and go from there and build one. And but I think the other thing I want to say, Matt, is I've been incorporating humor wherever it makes sense to incorporate it. So as soon as this was over and everybody was wowed by the fact that this thing was balanced and staying, and there were like 5 stones, I said, as soon as I move this, it's going to come crashing. And in fact, I moved it to continue worship, and you can see it all go tumbling over. And then, and then we laugh, and we just kind of move on. And, but yeah, I think involving the children with pictures, I think the day you were with us, I had asked them to set their own places at home for communion. So one family baked bread and sent us pictures of baking bread, and one family colored pictures of communion. So we showed that.
Shared those in the Google Slides.
I did. I showed those as part of the invitation to the table.
Yeah, and I think at some point you encouraged us to do that as well, that share. And so some of us were grabbing our cameras and moving them and showing our our tables that had been set, or our candles that had been lit, which you encourage before worship. Get a cross, get an icon, get a and so you were setting the scene visually for us even before we were joining in worship. It felt like time had been set apart, and I was really with you all, more than just in spirit. This was sacred space, and it was just wonderful. You have developed so many good best practices, and I'm so thankful for your time here today and sharing with us right now.
Well, thank you. It's an opportunity that we can go to each other's homes. We can see a part of each other that we have not known before. And so it's kind of like we're worshiping together, but we're gathering in each other's homes in a way. It's
almost more intimate. I mean, when my dog comes running in, and I think Tate closed the door because he knew that Bentley's about to, head in here or something. It can almost be more intimate, right? The dog jumps up on your lap, and now you've got the whole family here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you heard when you heard our beast barking earlier. I mean, he's when I'm in my office up here and I'm doing this, he is always right here.
There we go.
Anyway, thank you, Matt. And I'm happy to continue learning how to make it better, and to continue helping people to make it. Don't be intimidated by it. It's something that we are all, also the other thing is we're all kind of on a level playing field, because we're all learning something new. Mm-hmm. You can watch the entertainers, and they're doing it, Saturday Night Live and these other places are having to learn how to do this in a different way. So there's a lot of grace right now for it as well. So But thank you. So thank you for being you too, and for encouraging us to share.
Well, you're welcome. It's been a blessing. It's been an honor to be a part of this crazy time, this crazy pandemic time, to see the church really blossoming and flourishing in new ways, and a lot of practices that I hope we hold and take into the future when all this craziness is said and done. Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you so much, Cathi.
Thank you, Matt.
Take care.
All right.